You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
Do you need a car? Been shopping only to be turned down because of bad credit, low credit, no credit, bankruptcy, or divorce? Guess what? Today's your lucky day, because now you can buy a car, truck, or SUV, just about any vehicle. It's true. Bad credit doesn't matter. No credit doesn't matter. Bankruptcy or divorce, it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, your job is your ticket to your new vehicle. We're Auto Credit Express, and we've helped thousands of people just like you. Antonio H. told us, great company, got me connected, and the day I went in, I drove off in the car I wanted. 100% worth your time. Need a car? Get started now and drive off as early as today. Just text FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911 right now to get started. That's FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911. Auto financing the easy way. Text FINANCE to 357-911.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Hello, everybody. It is Monday, February 25th, 2019. You are listening to For Immediate Release. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill O'Reilly, and I'm here with my co-host, Liz Neuer-Feld. How are you tonight, Liz?
Hey, Billy, I feel like I haven't talked to you in ages. Certainly not on the show. How are you doing?
I know, not too bad. Not too bad. I'm taking time off from thinking about the world's problems. Like the last 10 days, it's very nice. How about you? Have you figured it all out yet? I think I'd come back and you have it all settled.
No, I'm actually, I'm on a tear right now. So the timing of our call is just perfect. And in fact, I'm actually just looking at Twitter. I sorry to bring you back to planet Earth, but just to see that Ben Sass's Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act just failed in the Senate. 53 to 44. So, yeah, 53-44. All the Democrats opposed it except for Bob Casey and Jones from Alabama and Joe Manchin. Lisa Murkowski didn't vote, wondering what that's about. Wait, details coming.
Yeah, we'll see. 3 passes.
Yep, and of course, no surprise, all 5 Democrats running for 2020 for the nomination on the Democrat voted against it. Booker, Gillibrand, and Harris, and Klobuchar and Warren. Bernie Sanders voted against it. Sherrod Brown. Well, they all did. Tim Scott got stuck on a plane, so he would have been a yes vote. He assures us, but it needed 60 votes, so obviously it had no shot.
That's so utterly insane. Utterly insane.
Yeah.
And of course, we would have no shot in the House, but oh boy, wow.
As someone just said, the Senate can't even pass a bill that would protect a baby that's already born. I mean, what is wrong with this country? This is a baby that is born. I mean, let's just wrap your head around that for a minute.
Yeah. Where the vote's not even close, and when the other house won't even touch it. I mean, that's where we, pick the issue. There's 50 of them, although that's the most egregious. I mean, we're talking about born babies. I mean, that's
well, you know what?
Craziness.
Yep. To put a perfectly fine point on it, 44 United States senators think it is perfectly acceptable to kill a newborn baby if a doctor and the mother agree. However, you can't have a plastic straw. That's unacceptable. You can't have a plastic straw. But no, literally, and I'm not saying to be snarky. We are so off kilter right now. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on. I guess maybe you haven't been thinking big thoughts when you've been away, so good for you. But I don't know where we go.
Liz, I've been trying not to, and what it really says to me is that 44 senators are too afraid to vote on the most common sense thing possibly that's ever been voted on the planet. They're too afraid of the orthodoxy on the left to raise their hand and say, wait a second, this is crazy. I don't think there's one person, or I pray there's not one person in that body that wouldn't arrest or grab anybody that was going to murder that child in a delivery room after he or she was born. That's a human instinct, but they're so afraid of the ramifications of breaking orthodoxy that they would make a vote that ridiculous. That's incredible. I hadn't seen it. I'm sorry you brought it to my attention.
Well,
but I guess it's going to get there.
Voted on Monday night, 6 o'clock. So what does that tell you? But I'm Bob Casey doesn't surprise me. He's been consistently pro-life his whole life, and he's not afraid of the Democrats coming after him. Joe Manchin, as we know, he votes the way he wants to vote. And Doug Jones, good for him. I like Doug Jones very much, actually, very much. No, I shouldn't say actually. I like him. So what you just said, though, Billy, is the most important thing. If this baby were sitting right in front of them, what would they do? Would they call 911? I don't know how to get my head around this. They actually think it's okay to report if the doctor and the mother want to. I just cannot believe we've gotten this low. I don't care what Donald Trump does. I don't care what crap he makes up every day on TV. This issue has got to be front and center in this election.
It's also the Democratic Party is so out of line with the prevailing attitude on this from most Americans, including Democrats. I mean, another poll came out just a couple of days ago that has 80% of Americans favor, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life, favor restrictions after the first trimester. We did polling in New York that showed the same thing. With pro-life, self-identifying liberal Democratic women overwhelmingly say that they oppose late-term abortions when they find out exactly what's involved. They're so out of whack. But if you don't say that you're, in the pro-choice crowd, if you don't say that you're 100% everything, you get attacked. And the fact that 44 members of the Senate would cave like that is really beyond belief.
It's absolutely frightening. You got to take the politics out of this one. I agree with you completely what you said, but just take it out for 1 minute. What else is left? What are you talking about here? I mean, how can any one of those candidates, I'm just talking about now there's 5 senators who are running to unseat Trump. If this is how they feel about protecting life, just actually a body, a life right in front of you, not the fetus, the body, why would you trust them with anything else? Anything. Your pocketbook, your guns, your whatever. Why would you trust them with anything? Climate change. If they actually think that this is legitimate. And what I'd like to see is word for word what their explanation is for this vote. Word for word. What the semantics is. The tiptoeing around all.
I've seen some of it in New York, and we've talked on previous shows about the bill that was passed in New York that allowed abortion right up until birth. And I worked against that bill for many years, and we were able to knock it back, at least keep it from getting a vote in the Senate. And then once the Democrats took over in New York, that bill flew right through. And what the opposition says, Liz, is it's not true. And you point to the bill and the language, and you say, this is what the language says, this is what it allows. And they say, oh, that's just not true, that's just right-wing crazy stuff. I mean, it's as bad as President Trump saying it's not true, to news reports that are accurate. It is true, and it sounds like this vote. I know what the bill said, because I knew that Senator Sass had sponsored it, it was specifically to prohibit the murder of a child that was born alive, which I guess is redundant. But I mean, that's just, that's madness. Yeah, this is where we are, Liz. I hate to not sound shocked, but I've dealt with this in New York a lot, and they just and nobody wants to talk about it. You look the other way and just say, that's a right wing thing, or this is a women's issue, or you have 4 or 5 words to dismiss anything in this area, and you just don't want to know what's actually in that legislation. And if you're told, you're told it's not true. Incredible.
Well, and watch, they'll get into some nonsense about the detail of the bill and this and that and the other thing, as if there's a choice, literally a choice to be made here. And then a couple of folks didn't get back to Washington to vote, because they can't be in Washington more than 2.5 days a week to do their jobs. And Lisa Murkowski, I'm curious. I wonder why she wasn't there. I've never been a fan. I think she's a phony fraud. This just infuriates me. Oh, boy. Oh, my God. Sorry to our listeners, but I'm sure they're just as outraged as we are.
It's just so ridiculous. I mean, the bill obviously wasn't going to go through anyway. It's one of those votes like the Republicans did a lot of votes like that with Obamacare, and Democrats have done it with other bills. That was clearly not going to be sponsored by the House. It was a one House bill, and they did it to hang the vote around the necks of Democrats going into the next election. But, even that said, how they could possibly do that vote, and I hope it is hung around their necks and then it weighs them down right down to the ground on election day. But it's exactly what you said, Liz. This is where we are. If this is where we are, what else matters? It's madness. There's nobody nobody would want to kill a child at birth or allow a child that was born, that was intended to be aborted, to be murdered, which happened with the Gosnell cases, where spines were snipped. I mean, you don't even want to talk about this stuff. But nobody would want that to happen, yet still they're making those votes because the lobbies are so powerful and the orthodoxy is so powerful. It's incredible.
And so what's going on with the Planned Parenthood defunding? So the president came out, was it Friday, and said he's going to defund Planned Parenthood. Completely, 100%, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a fight that's going to go on this year. That's become one of those footballs that gets punted back and forth. And, we'll see if that actually happens. But with the House in Democratic hands, I don't see how that's going to happen. But we'll see. But, the Republican Party, which is very interesting because it had backed off to some extent on abortion for many years, and abortion hadn't become such a hot issue. And I think the Democrats saw the Supreme Court judges coming down as a gift to them where they could go and gin up the abortion issue around states again and try and rally people. But I think it's backfiring on them, and Republicans are making it clear that extreme bills like the one we saw in New York and in Virginia and in I forgot the third state, but Republicans are going to use those in the fall, and the electorate seems to be with Republicans on this. Even the pro-choice electorate saying this is ridiculous. I mean, people forget that, and again we've talked about it on the show before, that countries like Europe and countries like France and Germany are all first term. Most countries are first term. Only I think North Korea and China allow abortions like up till 9 months of the nature that's allowed in New York now. Craziness, absolute madness.
It is absolute madness. Well, back to the. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this is the election cycle we're going to be getting into. I mean, it's going to be, everything. I hate to quote Steve Bannon, but he was talking yesterday about this is going to be, the most volatile election since, just before the Civil War, and he may be right. And it's going to be issues like this that are really gut-wrenching issues that just rip people to shreds. They just rip your souls apart. And it's hard for them not to rip your souls apart.
Well, we can segue beautifully here to our favorite freshman congressperson from New York. And she also thinks we ought to restrict childbirth because she's so worried about climate change that she says women of her generation, and I guess their husbands or baby daddies, ought to really think seriously about not having children and bringing them into this world while the threat of climate change is threatening to decimate all of us. So she's now actually giving, I don't know what you call it, birth control advice?
Parenting advice?
Is there anything that she hasn't weighed in on? Just curious.
Not yet. I don't know if she did the Super Bowl. I'm sure she's weighed in on the Oscars, but I don't know if she's done sports yet. But she should soon. And you say that she's from New York. I think that remains unclear. I mean, no one can figure out in New York where she lives. The New York Post has been trying to stake her out at apartments where she ostensibly lived in for the last couple of years and voted out of. But no one on her hallway knows who she is. They've never seen her before. I mean,
maybe we should enlighten all of our listeners, for those who don't have the privilege of getting the New York Post the way we do every day, of what the kerfuffle is.
Yeah, so Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, she ran in the primary against a Democrat named Joe Crowley, who was a pretty powerful Democrat in New York. He was actually the Democratic chairman of his county, and was possibly in line for Nancy Pelosi's job. I mean, he was really up at the top of the pack. And she snuck in there. She was from Westchester County, which is the suburb just north of the city, from a town called Yorktown, which is a pretty nice upper middle class area. And but she came in and she was simply the Bronx girl and was running very much with ethnicities in mind and the rest of it. But she hasn't opened any office after winning the election, and nobody can figure out what her actual address is. The address that she used to run from in a race for Congress was staked out by the New York Post. Reporters went and knocked on her neighbors' doors, and they said, we've never seen her before. One person said they thought they had seen her like months before, once at a holiday or something, because it had been her father's apartment, and others said they'd never seen her before in their lives. And now she's saying that it's gone on for a few days. Now she's saying that she just moved in with a boyfriend, but they won't give the address because if she gives the address, there are assassins out there that are going to try and kill her because of the report of the Coast Guard guy. And it goes on and on. I mean, like she's a one lady press machine, but seems to have that same talent the president has of constantly being in the news media. But her stuff, I was trying to like her as she's young, she's 29, and say everybody is sure about everything in the world when they're 29, but it's just too much. And the kid stuff now is amazing. You look at members of Congress in the Democratic caucus that were liberals for so long, and now they're being cast aside by this new crew. It kind of reminds me of Darkness at Noon by Arthur Koestler about the Soviet Union, when the generals would be pulled in for interrogation and they would see the picture frames, the outline that the sunlight had created for the picture frames that are now taken down, and they kept swapping at the generals that had been assassinated. But they're all being tossed aside by this new generation that thinks that it's got the magic to solve the world's problems.
Well, it's interesting. She's so shrewd, as we know. I mean, she seems to have been able to keep her own focus while all this other stuff is swirling around. But I was talking to two colleagues of mine today who are, one's in her 20s and one's in her very early 30s, about the AOC effect on 2020 and whether she will withhold her endorsement or she'll pick someone up front and go out and campaign. I mean, they seem to believe that, and one of these women leans more Republican and one I would say is pretty independent. They seem to think that she will be a big factor in mobilizing, particularly if she, supports someone like Beto O'Rourke, but in mobilizing throngs of voters. So it's certainly in the primary.
Liz, I think she will too. And I think a lot of Democrats, I forgot the polling numbers, but it was 60+% said they wish that she was the nominee for president. Now, I would normally say under regular circumstances, as a conservative, I would say, oh, that would be wonderful, go for it, give it a shot. But the problem is that somebody like AOC could win in this environment with so many people disliking President Trump. And that's the scariest thing to me, that we could end up with. And I'd love to get your take on that, on whether there's middle ground for a candidate down the middle. I know Mike Bloomberg's people and their very good pollsters seem to think no. There was another survey out of Washington a couple of weeks ago that suggested that yes, there is a possibility. But you could end up with Trump, who was so polarizing on one side, and an Ocasio-Cortez Democrat on the other side, whether it be Bernie or, I say that really to irritate Bernie, by the way. We'll label it Ocasio-Cortez Democrat, or Warren, whoever it might be. What happens if you have those two extremes? Do you think there's room down the middle for somebody, for a Schultz or for a Kasich or a Bloomberg, or you name the candidate, a Hogan?
Well, Hogan, no. But I will tell you that I think I guess I don't understand the vitriol directed at Howard Schultz the second he came out of the gate, and I don't know if that's because his quote unquote rollout on 60 Minutes was a little dull. I think we could all agree it was sober and not exactly, they certainly didn't have the fireworks that some of these other announcements do, but why, I can't figure that out. He, as a CEO, as we've talked about this, I think, he had health care for his employees long before anyone else did. He had education reimbursements for them. I mean, a lot of really arguably, certainly progressive, but principles that the Democrats always, promote and endorse. So I don't know, this whole idea of him being a spoiler is so insulting. Why don't we listen to what he has to add to the conversation? So I think that's where it's slightly tricky. Yeah. I think go ahead.
No, go ahead, Les. Go ahead.
I was going to say my biggest, putting aside really again the snark, there seems to be no it's not even middle ground, no listening at all going on the far left. None. You can't, they don't listen to anyone in their own party. They are so self-satisfied, self-assured, self-confident, and I think for their own sake, it's a really, really big mistake because they have marginalized people who could be very helpful even to their own cause, whether you and I agree with them or not. But man, this whole zero-sum game they're playing is very dangerous, and I think they're going to lose.
It is very dangerous. It's funny. I'm about to write a column about that for Newsday. For Thursday's edition, and I kept thinking of Woody Hayes, the old Ohio State coach, who would famously say, he wants 3 yards in a cloud of dust for every play. And you think that's what the Democratic Party needs right now. They need to line up. They're on the 3. They need to put in Joe Biden or Bronco Nagurski and give them 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they're in the end zone. But they want to bring it back to the other side and throw Hail Mary plays because the left is so, the hard left is so energized right now. But it's crazy. I mean, you think they could take this thing so easily and they're going to blow it, and you could see it a year and a half out. I mean, they are going to blow it because I've had trouble with this president. I think you have too, and others have. But in a contest between a Trump and one of them, it's not even close to me. I mean, it could deal with his volatility, assuming that the Russia stuff isn't going to put him behind bars. It's not a close call. They're just really throwing the opportunity away.
Oh, Lord. So, switching gears a little bit here, how do you think Trump's doing over the last week or so, and what do you make of his latest round with our favorite dictator in North Korea? He's on his way, or he's already in Vietnam.
Yeah, it's so funny with Trump. When he's down and he makes a big mistake or has a big loss, like with the border situation. It's like he's not going to hang on for another minute, like the world is against him. And then he plateaus, and I think he's in a plateau right now. And when he plateaus, a lot of voters go to him, where he gets up into the mid 40s, and which I think lends itself to your suggestion that he could easily win against a left-wing Democrat. But I think the North Korea thing seems to be like a little bit of a sham. The stuff on the border is a little bit questionable. But I think in both those situations, I think the average American looks at Trump trying to deal with intractable problems. Whether they get done or not, he's trying to Donald Trump them. And I think it helps him. I think, frankly, North Korea has wanted bilateral talks for 40 years with U.S. presidents. It was a gift to them to do the meeting, but that seems to be neither here nor there now. People have forgotten that. And I don't think North Korea is going to get rid of their nukes, but I think just the fact that they're talking, I think people like it. I think he gets away with it. And on the border situation, regardless of what happens with the vote from the Congress, I think he can override any vetoes. I think the fact that even though the numbers suggest that him doing the national emergency for the border is not a popular move, I think it's a popular move. I think it doesn't hurt him at all. I think it says to voters he'll do whatever he has to do to keep his promises, and he gets away with it. I think it actually helps him. It's a long way of saying I think he's stabilizing right now.
Yeah, I think he is too. Well, did you go ahead.
I assume Mueller's taking a pass this week because the president in Vietnam, and he's not going to release a report or even a quasi-damaging report. It's not going to be a happy report, regardless of how serious it is. He's not going to do that, while the president's on foreign soil. And Mueller's a real traditionalist, and I think that the country appreciates that. But I assume right after he gets back, we're going to be seeing the report. And then, Trump will likely go into a tailspin again, and we'll say, what were we thinking? And then we'll see what happens after that.
Did you happen to, or have you followed any of the coverage or any of the interviews with Andrew McCabe, or erstwhile former acting FBI director? Yeah. I mean, I did, not that closely. And I, anyone who's moving a book, I'm a little bit distrustful of. And, I hate to say that the guy, put a lot of years of service in there, and he was, pretty well respected, I understand, within the Bureau. But whenever someone's pushing a book and they're dropping these sensational items on a sitting president, as much as anyone may dislike Trump as a sitting president, and that's not what FBI leaders are supposed to do. And if you want to write a kiss all, 20 years from now, go ahead and do it, a kiss and tell all. But I don't really think it's appropriate. I know he's defending his honor. I know he was kind of screwed by the president, and in a very difficult way, in a financial way. He lost his pension, which is bad. But I'm just dubious about anybody that's moving a book. So I think you have to put his observations aside and compartmentalize until well after Mueller. What do you think? Same thing, Liz? Or I agree with you completely. So you have to ask yourself, what can you say about it? I agree with you, by the way, about getting screwed financially. The day before he was Trump fired, the day before he would have been eligible for his pension, which is I find that stuff petty and cruel and not necessary. And he has a family, and he didn't commit high treason, for God's sake. But you got to wonder about a guy who's managed to alienate both his former boss in Jim Comey and the president of the United States, and he's I don't make anything out of his wife running for office and donations from Terry McAuliffe or Hillary. Who cares? But I agree, and I just maybe I'm old-fashioned this way, but I don't like seeing former FBI directors out on television talking about activities of the FBI. I don't. I think it's wrong. Okay. I think when you sign on the dotted line and you take the oath of office for a job as important as that, what comes with that, frankly, is a straitjacket when it comes to talking to the press. And, it's what, now I'm not talking about leaking documents to the New York Times. I'm talking about, like you said, writing a book and going on a book tour, the tell-all book, not something philosophical or about the big moments in history while he was there, but this kind of thing is so unbecoming, and I think, unfortunately, it's what we've seen over and over again. We've certainly seen it coming out of a lot of these former White House staffers. My God. I mean, who hasn't written a book walking out the door? It's disgusting.
It is. And we've gotten used to staffers doing it. Did David Stockman do a book years ago under Reagan? Was that did Stockman do a book?
I'm sorry to tell you that I did some research on it, and I have a nice signed picture thanking me for it. It's called The Triumph of Politics. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. But I remember how controversial that was. And what was that? Probably 86 or 87. And it was hugely controversial. Now it's kind of de rigueur that the staff members do it. But I think it's different, and I agree with you. It's different for an FBI director or for a law enforcement figure or a Secret Service agent. it's one thing for communication staff or someone in any other area of the government doing it, but not on the law enforcement side. I agree with you. I think that's a line that we don't want to cross. And that seems to be the question. Like, the country is so volatile right now and so, polarized, that what norms do we throw out, in the process of this fight? And,
right.
I kind of soul search for that. I have thrown out some of my own norms, and I'm kind of scrambling to try and get them back, where, you dislike one side so much or one person that you're willing to throw out your own values, and that's not worth it. But, that's, you end up with votes like, the abortion vote tonight. That's craziness.
So, it's so interesting you bring that up about, the balance about selling out your own values, because there are values and then there are just positions on issues that you might feel like you're selling out on, because we all make I like them on these issues, but not these three. But, Chris Christie, his point about elections being a binary choice is actually the right point. You don't have a lot. Yes, you can do a write-in, but you don't have a lot of options, and you've got, at some point, got to say, okay, this is what matters to me the most, whatever, whether it's policy or values. So it's tough. We certainly don't live in a perfect world when it comes to this stuff. That's for sure.
No, that's for sure. That's a great point. I mean, to me, it's probably the debt is probably the thing that scares me the most because of having children. The debt's probably number one to me, and that I just find it amazing that however many years ago we're talking about the Simpson-Bolt Commission and the country's going under from debt, and that was like halftime. Like we've almost doubled the debt since then. And so, what does the Democratic Party do? It like triples down, quadruples down, octuples down on spending. Like the most expensive candidates come in and are now like the zeitgeist of the Democratic Party is like, let's nationalize, let's free everything. And the Republican Party is blowing through budgets too. But it just, I mean, at the worst possible time, you have the Democratic Party running candidates that would be considered utter lunatics a decade ago. I mean, I don't know if you saw the clip of Bernie Sanders in the 1970s praising Fidel Castro that popped up in the news this week. I think Newsweek had the clip, and he's, it's the 70s. It's Bernie Sanders looking like he would in the 70s. You know what I mean? Kind of the same shaggy hair, a little bit thinner in the glasses, and the exact same voice. And he's praising Castro. He's bashing the New York Times for being too conservative and John F. Kennedy for being too conservative. And you look at him, and he's a total lunatic. And he's a total lunatic in the 1970s. And now we're listening to him? Like, for real? It just, this is where we are. And I do, to go back to the point, one of the reasons that I've been, kind of vocal on the anti-Trump side is that it puts us in the position where this is where we are. Where you have such a flashpoint of a figure whose policies I largely agree with, but he's such a flashpoint that people may be willing to put in a socialist in order to beat him, and that's a freak out. That's a total freak out.
Yeah. Well, so a couple things. Number one, I haven't heard from any sitting United States senators that there is concern, which would be the low bar, or a plan about the debt. Zero. I heard nothing. 22 to 22, you heard absolutely nothing. So I don't know who's leading on that, but people talk about the sky is falling for the other reasons. You hit the nail on the head. And we've discussed this. I don't know when everybody will begin to understand what that really means. It's not going to, again, take food off everyone's table tonight, and maybe they'd realize, oh, right, I've got to start, paying for all this stuff. I don't get that at all. But on the burning,
go ahead, sorry. I was saying, if I could ask listeners to stay tuned to the Federalist Party of America, that's going to be making significant noise on the debt. If they can keep watching that, and it's @RealFedParty is the Twitter handle. But keep an eye, because there are some things coming down. And then to your point, Liz, about how you could possibly try to visualize or understand just how bad the debt is. There was a bill floating around, a kind of a faux bill in Montana to sell Montana to Canada for $1 trillion to help pay down the debt. And of course, that would leave us with $21 trillion in debt. You could sell Montana and still have $21 trillion worth of debt. You know, the total number of mortgages for real estate in America, if you add every mortgage up in America, you get $15 trillion, and we're $22 trillion in debt. If you add all the real estate in New York City, commercial and residential, you come up with, I think it's 16 trillion or 13 trillion. I can't remember the number, but somewhere around there. I mean, they're just, the figures are so staggering.
I did not know that the 15 trillion with the mortgages, I mean, actually bring it home to people, literally. Sorry for the pun.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm a little slow tonight.
No.
Another night.
Oh my God. All right. So what about, we've so much left to talk about. Bernie. Speaking of Bernie, Hillary's got the long knives out for Bernie. Today, her former staffers said that Bernie was a self-indulgent slob who insisted on flying privately everywhere and spent, tens of thousands of dollars on jets when he could have flown commercially as he flew around the country during the election to campaign for her. After the primary, after he endorsed her, his people say she's disgusting and awful. The exchange today, I don't know if you saw it, was vintage politics. You could put Roger Stone's name on some of it, except for that he wasn't involved. So Bernie said Clinton people are so great. I mean, not only are the gloves off, the open hatred is quite something. So I guess my bigger point here is are the Hillary forces going to play a big role in this primary? And if so, who are they going to get behind? We know who they're against. They're obviously mad at Gillibrand because she's been bad-mouthing Bill Clinton. Now, they're certainly not going to get behind Bernie. Where are they going to go? Who do they like? Because
Hillary can get over the jealousy. I think you're right, and they go to Kamala Harris, possibly, or to I'm going to blank on the name. Who's not in the? I'm just having a mental block for a second. Or to Sherrod Brown, or yeah, someone's a little bit more centrist. But I'm delighted to see that happening, as ugly as it may be. But then again, the old Hillary team, like the top Hillary team, I think has been broken up for a bunch of years. Some of them are with Bloomberg now, some of them are with other candidacies. But the Democratic Party is going to have to fight for its soul, just as the Republican Party is fighting for its. So
it looks like Kamala Harris Bernie's killing it on the fundraising. He's already raised $10 million in less than a week, but Kamala Harris appears to be, I don't know, darling of the media is right, but she certainly seems to be getting the bulk of the attention.
Right. She definitely is. And I was going to say that Bernie Sanders is even emailing me for money. So he's being pretty thorough.
Oh my God.
I'd certainly give my money to, I was going to say ISIS, but I probably shouldn't go that far, but, maybe to the North Koreans, good Lord. She seems to be, and her numbers, I think she's running second in New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders is leading in New Hampshire. I mean, it's so early, but it's not that early, but it's still early. But he's from a neighboring state, so that makes some sense. But nobody else seems to have taken off. It seems to be just, divided up among the pack. But she's, I forgot what her latest number was in New Hampshire, but it was decent. It was, around 20 or something. And so, I guess now they play the stumble game, who makes a mistake, who gets, passed up, turned up on them. But, Liz, it's so crazy with the Democrats, though, is that, they could have said something that was completely normal now to many of us, but normal 10 years ago. And they'll get thrown into the Democratic Party for it now. You know what I mean? It could be an old gay marriage quote, or like, anything that gets picked apart by the Ocasio-Cortez crowd, and suddenly they're going to get railroaded out of town.
Yeah, they will. And I guess you have to ask yourself, do they have the staying power for next year? But I think they do. I think they're demonstrating that they absolutely do.
I think Kamala Harris will have the staying power. Yeah, she seems like a pretty tough cookie, and I don't I don't think Gillibrand hangs around too long. I just don't see it. I mean, I think she's going to fall so flat so quickly, and her lane is taken already, and because the Democrats are so fascinated with ethnicities and with genders, Kamala, Harris has much more cover than Gillibrand right off the bat, just demographically. So does Liz Warren if you count her Native American ancestry. But Gillibrand will dig something up. So.
Oh my! But she really doesn't have a lane. I find it really strange that more than strange, it's odd that Gillibrand picked the lane of the young working mom. First of all, she's almost 50, so I'm delighted to see that she thinks that's young. But what is that? How is that a lane? I don't know what it's supposed to represent. At all.
She's also, she was a tobacco lobbyist. I mean, she was in the legal team for the tobacco.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. I mean, she's her father's a deeply entrenched lobbyist with very close relationships to Al D'Amato, who is not exactly a darling of the left. She was, the old gag is she was Annie Oakley before, or Calamity Jane before she was Jane Fonda, saying she used to sleep with guns under her bed. I mean, she's got a lot of holes in her. And also, she and her husband dumped a whole bunch of stock in the housing market just before the housing market crashed. And she was in hearings about the housing market crash coming down. And then, of course, she, sponsors legislation to prohibit that, later on to cover herself. She has a lot of problems that she's going to have to deal with. And, others presumably will as well. But I don't see how I don't think she has the gravitas to really springboard. But, others do. Do you have anybody any other favorites besides Kamala Harris at this point, Liz? I think Warren looks like a dotty old fool. Let's get a beer. She looks like a psychotic, environmental professor like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I'm not sure who she's connecting with. I know people are turning out, but they're turning out to see everybody at these small, I should say small, but these Iowa caucus events. Yeah, I don't see Elizabeth Warren going anywhere. I will say this in her defense, which might sound funny, but she's a serious woman who has done serious work. I was listening to something the other day, a recitation of all the records, legislative records of all of these U.S. senators who are now running for president. They've accomplished nothing. I mean, Elizabeth Warren got the Consumer Protection Board. I mean, she's got some things done. Of course, and Obama stuck it to her and pointed to it. But she's a woman of substance. But I don't think for many, many reasons, most importantly, that she's not, the issue, her position on issues is not resonating. But I don't think she's going anywhere. But she does have a record. I mean, Kamala Harris has been there for 5 minutes, right? Gillibrand's got nothing, literally nothing done. So
I think she's comes across kook. That's just the way that's how I see her. I mean, when she starts to go, I just see, kookiness there. And maybe it's the YouTube plays that she's been doing. But you got to wonder with the new orthodoxy on the left, is it better not to have a record? Like any record that they have is going to be unacceptable to the strident crowd.
Well, I guess obviously the remaining big variable is Joe Biden. Because if he were to enter, does he enter as the front runner automatically, or not? And what about Beto O'Rourke, who appears to be the savior of all saviors for a lot of these folks? And I don't know what the timing tape, what's required. I mean, he had a self-imposed deadline. I think he had said by March he was going to decide. But realistically, I don't know how much time he would have or anyone else to enter the race. Like Bloomberg. I mean, I don't know what you're hearing. We've talked about him. I don't see how he's going to get it.
I mean, it's incredible. Like, what has he done? Like these people are running for president of the United States.
No, I know.
Although we said that about Barack Obama too. And I think Rudy Giuliani had a field day with him in that 2008 convention. When he was giggling about his his credentials versus John McCain's, and of course Obama went on to win the presidency. But do you think anyone throws Ocasio-Cortez on the ticket just to gin up the young face?
She's like negotiating with the terrorists. No.
I just saw Raid on Entebbe, or whatever the new version of it was, and it's a very similar look. It's a great observation.
Absolutely. Can you imagine? Oh God, no. I don't think so. And I think by and large, really, she's a nightmare for the party. I'm certain she is. Big picture. And also back to our point earlier, particularly related to things like the debt. We need some serious people here doing serious work. There is a lot of stuff that needs to get done. So, I guess if we get back to the same old question, which is who can actually beat the president, which is the only thing these Democrats care about. They, apparently, the issue really in Iowa is at every one of these caucuses that the residents or the Iowans are rallying behind or will rally behind whoever they think has the best odds of beating Trump. So that's a strange game to play because everyone thought Hillary was going to throttle him, and she didn't.
Right. It's a good point. I mean, do they? If they go for somebody, super exciting to the lefties to bring out that extra vote, I think it's a grave mistake. And, I know I come from the Republican side, but I know, obviously a lot of Democrats. I live in a household with mostly Democrats. But I have friends who love Trump, hate Trump, or somewhere in the middle. And, to a person, they're saying if the Democrats run someone on that, that hard left, they'll go for Trump in a heartbeat. Without even people who were ardent anti-Trumpers, never Trumpers. That they would, a Bernie Sanders versus a Trump. It's not even close. It's not even a close call. I think it'd be a huge mistake for them. And I would like to say I hope they make it, but I'd be afraid that what if I'm wrong and they won, and we had a Bernie Sanders in the White House? That's a terrifying thought.
This is terrifying. Do you think Bernie Sanders has a realistic chance?
No, I don't. I think he's just too boring. I think he's putting the band back together, but he's been putting the band back together since the 70s. I think he had his shot. I think he ran a pretty good race last time, and I think but his message got overtaken. It got co-opted, and other people now have it, and it's become mainstream in the party. So I don't know what he's really offering, unless he's going to say, free college education in a house, or free college education in a house and a car. Maybe a car is a right, new right under the Constitution. I don't know how much they can outbid themselves at this point. When guaranteed minimum income, a free college education, a house, health care, and retirement, and anything else, the car. We got the car.
You get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car. I don't know. Although I was reading some statistic that 40 or 50% of Bernie Sanders donors in the last week are new donors. Now, they could be people who are donating to multiple candidates. I haven't seen that analysis yet. They could be donating across the board and to the Democrats. They could be $10 donors, to each one of these. But that's an interesting statistic, and I'm surprised.
Right.
Because I don't know, like you said, I don't even know what his platform is right now other than free everything. I mean, kidding aside, I don't know what the specifics are. I know what Elizabeth Warren stands for. I know what what her approach is. I don't know what Bernie's going for.
Yeah, but I think a lot of that money, it's like, the Code Blue crowd, it's lots of little donations, and they're probably donors, or I assume, giving to lots of different candidates. They're betting on different horses, $10 here, $20 there, the small donations. But, the Democratic candidates are going to have no problem raising money, and, neither will President Trump. But just to go back to where we were in the beginning, Liz, do you think there's room for a third candidate on some type of independent line?
You know what? I think, how's this for an answer? I think for voters, yes. For the media, no. I think the media will
explain that. That's a really important point.
Yeah. I think if you started doing man-on-the-street interviews, they'd say, I don't like any of these people. I don't want this. I want someone reasonable. I want someone who's going to get something done. I want someone with this kind of experience. But the press aren't going to give any of these people. They're doing what, I would liken AOC to Trump in this way. The press are building her up. They're going to tear her apart one of these days. It'll take a while because they need to have her in the on the front page.
I think
but,
it's already started.
Yeah. Well, it's a joke. I mean, Amazon economics are appalling. Back to that. Can't we just take the $3 billion and write a check to the schools and our crumbling infrastructure? That's what she thinks the tax break was for Amazon. There was a check sitting in Albany that we were going to write. I mean, it's really actually terrifying that she would have the kind of influence she does and get the kind of attention she does when there are serious problems that require serious legislators. So, but I just don't see it really. Look what the lesson was. I mean, CNN's profits last year were $2 billion. After the year before, they were probably close to that. And this is after they elevated Trump, and now they tear him apart every day. I mean, this is what's driving profits for these networks. So I don't see how they're gonna make room for Howard Schultz or even Mike Bloomberg, who, as reasonable and responsible as he is a bit of a snooze on TV. They're not gonna do it.
And it's not even the money it's the cost of it. It's adding at least a third to their costs at a time when they're all on skeletal staffs. It's really, you're exactly right, Liz. And I think that's the most important point. And I've been talking to a bunch of people that are thinking along the lines of maybe someone down the middle. And I think that's the most difficult thing to overcome as well. And maybe a Bloomberg or we'll see a Schultz who has the type of money to overcome, the dearth of news media coverage, could be in play. But that media coverage is worth a lot of money. I mean, billions and billions of dollars. You'd have to put it all on the table to really make that kind of noise, I think, and just demand the attention. But we saw it with Gary Johnson last night, with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. And people were looking for a middle candidate, and Gary Johnson got a little bit of media attention, and then unfortunately he got a little bit more than he wanted with the Aleppo thing, and that was the end of him. But but it was just a glimmer, and what did the end? I don't know what they ended up with, but just a couple of points. It's tough. It's very tough.
Well, is it serious that Bill Weld getting the race in primary Trump? He's not going to raise $5. This is ridiculous. I mean, Trump has been raising a lot of money over the last few years, and I read this morning that he's raised more than any Republican incumbent president at this time during the re-election prep cycle. If that's whatever that sounds, you get the idea. So I don't see how Larry Hogan or anyone else is going to come along and primary Trump. I don't. Kasich, no way. I mean, he might try. I don't think he has. I don't think he has a chance. Yeah,
I think Governor Weld jumped the shark a number of years ago, and he ran as the vice president on the Libertarian line, in 16. But he also, he tried to run for governor of New York and lost the primary in 2006 against John Faso, who ultimately lost against Eliot Spitzer, who ultimately destroyed his own reputation. But I think Weld has made too many kind of weird plays. So it's one of those. Is there anybody else out there? God, I hope some Republican come in there and run. Bill Weld raises his hand. Is there anybody else in the mix?
Bueller. Can we talk for a minute about the Jussie Smollett situation in Chicago?
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Bananas, yes. Please do. Yeah. And I think we have to. And just so you know, I think for time wise we have about 4 minutes left. But let's finish up with Jussie Smollett. That's a good idea.
It relates to this conversation, which is at the core of this. He staged allegedly an attack on himself. Paid a couple of guys who he knows, who he was in business with, to pretend they were lynching him and pour bleach on him, and he said it was a hate crime. But he invoked Trump's name, and he said that during the attack, these two men said something about "Make America Great Again." And there are so many things. And now, of course, the police in Chicago have come forward and said they have evidence that he made up the whole thing, and he's been arrested, and the other guys have gone to a grand jury and come clean. The alleged perpetrators, and it explained that the whole thing was a hoax. But what I'd ask you is, because I think this is important, is the idea that Trump and Trump's name and Making America Great and the racism is part of this, and it's part of a lot of other stuff now too. What does that mean for the next couple of years? Do you think for a while that was a way to get that everyone would believe it and people would be up in arms. I can't, I mean, there's instability here, of course, on his part, but from a political standpoint, what does all of this mean?
Yeah, I mean, and I understand what you're getting at. I think it's the greatest gift in the world to Trump and his supporters. I mean, it's more fake news. I mean, it's actual fake news, and it just justifies the rest of the bashing on Trump. And I don't particularly like Trump, you know that, but the media bashing is ridiculous. I've never seen anything like it. And I've done a little bit on my own, but this is like bona fide fake news. I don't know how this guy could possibly dig his way out of this. He should say he just got hooked on this new kind of pill out of Uruguay, and it made him insane. I mean, you know, go do 28 days someplace, and you know, I don't know how you dig out of that PR wise, but I think it was just perfect for Trump. It makes him look insane, and for people on the political left that are principled and really have a problem with what Trump is saying, and there's things that Trump says that are not right, and I tend to agree with him on some of these things. They should be furious with him. I mean, they should take him down more than anybody because he blew their credibility. I mean, it's really bad what he did. Really, really bad.
No, and it's interesting. Go ahead.
I think it's a plus in Trump's column. It's a plus in his column.
No question about it. The same way that that AOC is a plus in his column. If you want to just say keep it up, the more these guys are out, these crazy. You talk about jump the shark. She was better 6 weeks ago than she is right now. This notion, like, you know, this nonsense like today of, you know, it's a legitimate question that 30-year-old women should say, why bring a child into this world? So the climate, skate your lane. What are you doing? Who are you? I find all this goes more than one. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you would say if you know, the political left would have to invent Donald Trump if he didn't exist, you know, and the same thing for the political right is they would want to invent Andrea Ocasio-Cortez. I mean, she's just perfect fodder, and she's day in and day out. You're right, stay in your lane. Now don't have children. You know, it just wow. You know, we're going to get rid of houses. We're going to get rid of airplanes. We're going to build bridges to Europe. I mean, you just can't. You can't. But I think, Liz, we're going to finish up. So why don't you get a final thought in before we hop off? And what would you like to talk about?
John Nickerson. Let's talk about John Nickerson, who was a real friend to you and a guest on this show. And why don't you talk about him?
You know, we'll close with that. We just have a minute, and I just want to. A couple of months ago, we had a wonderful gentleman on the show who's a dear friend of mine named John Nickerson. He passed away about 10 days ago. I just learned at the age of 83. He was a roommate of Senator John McCain's at the Naval Academy. They were both often in trouble together. I'm not sure if they were roommates, but they were classmates. And they were often on kitchen patrol together. And John was a naval officer who later became a soap opera actor and then became a counselor for drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and the rest of it. I met him on the alcohol addiction side. And just a wonderful, wonderful man. He ran an organization called Pathways to Freedom in New York and retired a couple of years ago and went back to his native area. He was actually in Hyannisport, but he grew up in that area. And just, you know, passed away very suddenly at 83, but a real tragedy. Anyone who knew John Nickerson knew what a wonderful guy he was. He was a guy who loved politics. He was on the political left. We disagreed politically, but I always respected his opinions because they were well thought out. But just a wonderful guy who did a lot for me, Liz, and for and a lot of close friends. So I'm in his debt, and I just wanted to mention his name to everybody before signing out tonight.
Well, and we had him on right after John McCain passed away, and he had some great old stories. He was just a treat, and it was generous of him to spend an hour with us that day. And it was last May. It was last spring.
Yeah, so, it wasn't very long ago. It's funny. The first conversation I had with him, we could maybe talk about it another time because I know we're running out of time. But in my first conversation with him, I asked him, which is kind of a weird thing, "Are you afraid of death?" And I would need 10 minutes to explain how we got to that. And he said, "Absolutely not. I'm totally ready." That was about 25 years ago. And I think that's the way he went, which is the way we should all go. But anyway, with that, thank you everybody for listening. Always a pleasure to have you. And then thank you, Liz.
Thank you. We'll be back next week. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody. Okay, bye.
A purple mountain majesties